If you're going on a cruise, especially for the first time, there are some cruise etiquette rules that aren't obvious, but you'll want to know. From cruise cabins to dining to sea days and port days, knowing these things will avoid awkward moments on a cruise. Hi there, I'm Ilana from the website lifewellcruise.com. Welcome back to my channel. Now, cruise lines definitely have some rules and some policies. You're going to find those on their websites. However, there are also some unspoken or even unwritten rules that many, first-time cruisers wouldn't know, but even sometimes avid cruisers do have questions about. Now, in this video, I'm going to go over 17 unspoken cruise etiquette rules, and I did divide them into different categories. Now, this includes cabin, dining, and buffet, room service, cruise ports of call, public areas, crew, and more. And before I get started, I wanted to mention two things. Firstly, some of this is subjective. So if you have a difference of opinion, that is okay. Let me know down in the comments below. And secondly, if you like this video, if you find it helpful, informative, or enjoyable in any way, then please do give this video a big thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. And please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Let's get started. Number one, let's talk about room service. Now, when you're on a cruise, most of the time, room service is free in the morning time for breakfast. So it is pretty common for people to order room service then, or even at different times during the day, or to bring food back to their cabin. However, you might be wondering, what do you do with your food, your drinks, your leftover dishes once you are done? Now, depending on the cruise line, some cruise lines are going to ask you to leave that in your cabin, and the cabin attendant is going to remove it, or they're going to have a little sign or a little note that says that you can call the room service number and somebody will come and pick that up. However, other cruise lines are going to ask you to put those items in the hallway. Now, when it comes to the etiquette around that, something to remember is that when it is in the hallway, people can trip, they can fall on it, or it could just be a little bit of a mess. So one of the things that you should do is when you have liquids is take a moment, you're in your cabin anyway, and just empty those liquids down the sink. And then when you do put your tray out in the hallway, it is less likely to cause a mess. Number two, now speaking of room service, a lot of times people ask, do I need to give a tip when room service is delivered to me? And again, this is not a rule, but it is a little bit of an unwritten rule that a lot of people do give $1 to $2 per delivery. Now, something that we do is we just kind of keep a little stack of about 21s in our cabin, so we have those for tips when we need them. Now, by the way, I'd love to hear from you on this. Do you tip for room service? Yes or no? There's no right or wrong answer. Let me know down in the comments below, as well as how much you leave. Number three, use the cruise names. Now, obviously, this is when somebody has introduced themselves to you, like the cabin attendant or even a waiter, that you're having the same waiter night after night. Is just good etiquette, I guess, to use their name. Even a bartender, if you see the same bartender all the time, not only are they going to appreciate it, but you're probably going to get a little bit better service. Speaking of crew, ask, don't complain. So if there is something that you would like from your cabin attendant or from anybody else on the cruise, it is just good practice to ask for it. So if you need more hangers in your cabin, if you need anything in the dining room, don't wait until that time is over and then complain later to guest services, or even worse, after the cruise. Ask when you are on the cruise, because truthfully, the crew really do want you to have a good time. They want you to leave them a good review in the survey as well. It means a lot to them. So if there is anything that you need, be proactive and ask. The main dining room or restaurant etiquette. So first, let's talk about the cloth napkins when you are in the main dining room or any of the restaurants. Now, you'd think that this goes without saying, but you should not use that cloth napkin to blow your nose. If you have a cold, if you think you might need to blow your nose, Instead, bring some Kleenex with you, never in the cloth napkin. Now, also in any of the restaurants, if you have a teenager with you and maybe they have their phone with them or an iPad, or even yourself, if you're using your phone, watching a movie, anything like that, make sure that you do bring AirPods or headphones. Don't put that on loudly because you should not do that in a public area. And I have to tell you, we did have a situation once. We were in a specialty restaurant and there was a family there with a couple of kids and they were playing, I guess, video games really loudly on their iPad. It was extremely distracting, very annoying. And in our case, we just asked to move to another table, but it really would have been better had that family simply had their children bring AirPods. Now, by the way, if you're planning your cruise and you're trying to keep organized and make sure that you do not forget a thing, I do have the LifeWell Cruised Ultimate Cruise Planner. Now, the LifeWell Cruised Ultimate Cruise Planner is a 47-page downloadable printable cruise planner that you could use from the time that you booked your cruise all the way through embarkation and disembarkation. Now it includes cruise packing lists, it includes shore excursion planning forms, cruise budget forms, cruise outfit planning forms, and more. And the best part is that you could use it for this cruise, but you can also print all the pages that you need for as many cruises as you go on. Now, I'll leave all of the information about the LifeWell Cruise Ultimate Cruise Planner linked down below in the description of this video in case you do want to check it out. Cruise buffet etiquette. Now, when it comes to the buffet, there are usually a lot of tables there. And one thing that you don't want to do is hog those tables for an extended amount of time, in particular during the busy times, so breakfast and lunch. People are waiting for those tables, so simply eat and then get up and go. Or even leave room if you're at a table for 4 and you're only 2 people. Leave those other 2 chairs available for somebody else to sit down, especially if it happens to be a port day. You'll notice that people are trying to eat and get out, so they really do need that place to stay. And while you can definitely sit by yourself, when it is very busy, it's just nice to leave the room for other people. Now, sometimes what people do at those public tables is they may play cards or they may play mahjong, and you can definitely do that, but just stay away from doing that during those extremely busy times. Now, speaking of loitering, the same can be said at the bars or even the cafes on the cruise ship when you know there are other people that are waiting. If you're not eating or drinking, it's a good idea to move along, find other places on the cruise ship. There are definitely chairs out on the promenade deck or in other public areas, the lounges that you could sit. But those areas that people do want to have a drink or eat, it is best to move along. Cruise line dress codes. Now, cruise line dress codes these days are a little bit more of a suggestion than a really enforced rule. However, there is one rule that cruise lines do enforce, and that is not wearing swimwear in dining rooms and restaurants. Now, in particular, in the evening time, we've even been told this by maitre d's and restaurant managers. They've told us that they occasionally have issues with this. And there are no exceptions. You definitely do have to cover up and put on clothing when you're going to a dining room or restaurant. Elevator etiquette on cruises. Now, I think that this must be the same everywhere, but the fact is that on a cruise ship, most people are going to be taking the elevators several times a day. So this is particularly noticeable on cruises. So I'm not sure why people don't always know this. Maybe it's cultural. I'm not even sure. But there are some rules when it comes to the elevators. So firstly, it is let people out before you walk in. The other thing is, of course, there are several decks or floors on a cruise ship. So if you're on the elevator and somebody needs to get off, for instance, at deck 8 and you're getting off at deck 10 and they're behind you, you do need to get off the elevator to let them out, and then you might need to walk back in. Now, the other thing is that while there are several elevators, there are also a lot of people who want to take them. So allow the people that were there before you to get in first. And in particular, if there are people with walkers or that have disabilities, it can take them a little longer to get to that elevator. But if you do know that they're there before you, it's a good idea to make sure that they go in first. Overcrowding the elevator. Now, I know not everybody is going to agree on this one, but to the extent possible, respect personal space in an elevator. So when you see that the elevator is quite full, just let it go and wait for the next one. And by the way, if you're only going up one deck or two, it's a good idea. Why not even walk or take the stairs if you are able to? Cruise ship cabins. Now, when it comes to cabins, even though it's your own space, we still are affecting the people that are next to us or higher or lower. So when it comes to your cabin, if you're on the balcony, don't scream, don't talk really loudly, don't play music really loudly because that can disturb other people. But the other thing that is really much less obvious is many cabins do have a balcony light on them that you can open and close. So if you do like your balcony light open, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you go back in after using that light at nighttime, make sure that you do close it off because it can affect the rooms next to you where they are able to see that light. Cabin doors and hallways. Now I have a little tip for you when it comes to the cabin doors. So if you have your front cabin door and you also have your balcony door, do not open them at the same time. You're going to create this major wind tunnel, and honestly, it could even be dangerous. There have been cases of people actually getting their fingers slammed in either door with really not good consequences. But beyond that, the door slamming sound, that is going to disturb other people. Now, when you do walk down the hallway, I think it goes without saying, but don't scream, don't yell, because voices do carry. Public spaces. Don't get too comfortable in the public lounges. Now, there are beautiful lounges on cruise ships where you can sit and relax or watch a show, but something that you don't want to do is treat it like it's your own private living room. So keep your socks on, don't put your feet on the furniture, don't lay down on the couches. And of course, if you are on the Lido deck and you're next to the pool, lay down, relax, put your feet up. But when you are inside the cruise ship, well, that's a different story. Now, going back to your cabin, even though you have a cabin attendant, something that you'll want to do is keep your cabin tidy. So make sure that you do have your clothing that is put away. If you have any trash, it's a good idea. Just put that into the garbage, because while your cabin attendant is going to clean your room, they're not really there to pick up all your clothes. And there is a good chance that they may leave all of that and not really clean much of your room if you do that. Cruise line or queue etiquette. Now, there are going to be some lineups on a cruise ship sometimes. So it could be when you're going into a show, it could be at the buffet, it could be at guest services, and it can even be to get on and off the cruise ship. Now, overall, don't jump in line in front of somebody else, but the most important thing is to pack your patience. And by the way, while it's okay to save a place for one person in line, people definitely do that. Don't save space for 10 or 20 people that are all your family members. If you are in line, make sure that everybody is in line with you. Now, speaking of cruise ports, if you have an excursion, make sure that you are on time. Now, this includes being on time when you're leaving the cruise ship or meeting up right outside of the cruise ship, but also when you're on that excursion. If your excursion is 4 hours, for example, and you have a meetup time at the end, make sure that you are there on time or even a few minutes before so that you don't make other people wait. Cruise etiquette with fellow passengers. Now, there are some things that you want to do to get along with other people. And by the way, cruisers are very friendly people, but everybody is there for a vacation. So avoid topics of conversation that have to do with religion or politics, and avoid wearing any offensive or potentially offensive clothing or graphic tees as well. Entertainment. Now, when it comes to the entertainment on cruise ships, they happen on time. So if you have a show that is supposed to start at 9:30, it pretty much does start on time. So you want to make sure that you arrange your evening so that you get to the show a few minutes early. Try not to arrive late. And if you do arrive late, just, maybe sit somewhere in the back or go sit down quietly, but don't walk to the front and disturb other people. Now, speaking of entertainment or show etiquette, if you are sitting in front, refrain from leaving early. So if you think you might leave early from a show, maybe you don't think that you'll really like it or you have other plans after, also, just sit towards the back so it really doesn't disturb other people, but more importantly, that it doesn't disturb the cast. Lido deck or pool deck etiquette. Now, when it comes to the cruise ship, they are going to provide you towels that you could use out on the pool deck. And by the way, even that you could take off the cruise ship and you can bring for excursions. However, something that you'll want to do is when you are finished with your towel is you will want to bring that over to either the towel station. So sometimes you're going to have a sign in and sign out system. But even if there is no system like that, it is a good idea to take those towels away, because otherwise not only does the crew have to do it, but the crew may wonder if you're coming back to the chair, and other people may not take that chair when it is available. Tipping. Now, this is not going to be a whole video about tipping. I do have videos like that, but there are a few things that you'll probably want to know. Now, there are a few times that it is common to give a little tip. Now, those times are when you arrive at the cruise port and the porter takes your luggage. Now, whether you agree or disagree, most people do give a few dollars when they hand over their luggage. Nothing bad will happen if you don't, but this is pretty typical. Room service, like we talked about earlier. And as well, when you do go on an excursion, it is customary to give a few dollars to either your driver or the tour guide. Oh, and by the way, when I am speaking about tipping, I'm mostly talking about cruises that leave out of North America. Don't flirt with the crew. Now, passengers flirting or making a pass at crew members can actually put them in a bit of an awkward situation. They are not allowed to fraternize with the guests or have any type of romantic relationship. So you don't want to put them in that awkward situation where they may get in trouble. What to do with a drink or glassware when you are finished with it. Now, something unique to a cruise ship is the fact that you can go and get a drink at a bar, and then you can keep walking to your cabin or maybe to a show. But what do you do when you're finished with your drink and you don't want it anymore? Well, if you're not in your cabin, something not to do is just put it on the floor in a hallway, or worse yet, I have seen it on a staircase, and even still I have seen it, a glass left or a plate left in the elevator. So do not do that. Find instead any of the public lounges, any of the places where there's a table or even a bar, and place that item there. Now, I'm going to leave all of the information about the LifeWell Cruise Ultimate Cruise Planner down in the description below this video, but I would love to hear from you. Please let me know, what are some of the other unspoken rules of cruising? Please let me know down in the comments below, as well as any questions that you may have. Now, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give it a big thumbs up. I really do appreciate it, and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Bye for now, and happy cruising.